Hello everyone, welcome to Leading with Agility, the show that uses the world around us to explore how leadership can be inspired by agility. As always, I'm your host Arif, and I'm joined by...
Myself, TK, your reflective and forward-thinking coach.
Reflective and forward-thinking.
You never know, right? Two at the same time. Huh?
How do you do both?
Well, I just go crazy, right?
Exactly, yeah. Let's talk about that maybe later, but well done. Welcome back. Not well done. I'm saying well done. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode. This is a special episode, actually, because we have reached, or I should say it, we've reached the end of season 1, TK. This is a monumental point in our podcasting life with Leading with Agility, our show. Mm-hmm. And we thought we'd use this episode to kind of reflect on the episodes that we've broadcast and maybe talk about things that we've learnt and things that we've discovered and what we've maybe enjoyed the most as well. About some of the episodes
would be great. Of course.
We've recorded. I think I've look forward to talking about that with you and reflecting. And then also we have plans for season 2, exciting plans that I am looking forward to sharing with our listeners as well. I'm sure you are, TK. So hopefully we can talk about that as well today. So 2 things on the agenda, so to speak. So let's start with maybe some reflection on season 1 and going way back to, if we go back to our first episode, which was late last year before Christmas.
Okay.
We released our first episode around agile leadership and what it means to us and why we've decided to start this podcast. And then I think it's been, 8 months of, or just about 8 months of releasing content around
weekly
this
episodes,
topic.
Yes.
Yeah, weekly. I think it's been fascinating for us anyway, to be able to share our thoughts with the world.
Yeah, I think, the important thing as every time is to start. And then as we went on, I think it got easier and easier. We've developed new skills and, ways to do it. I can remember, I can share an anecdote, Arif, personal story time. So what happened is, listeners might not know, so we were gearing to record the podcast for a while. And I was like, Arif, you need to get a proper microphone. So I found the microphone for Arif to get, and you're now hearing him through the microphone. But the fact is, it's a decent but not overly expensive microphone. And when we recorded our first podcast, I thought, whoa, Arif sounds much better than me. What the hell? So it prompted me to spend a lot of time around Christmas on audio engineering and then some money on my gear. But thankfully now I'm back where I need to be.
So you got jealous over my superior audio quality.
That's what happens, Arif. Yeah, I have to admit, yes.
You're shameless, TK. Absolutely shameless. Aside from audio quality, I mean, let's just reflect on the stuff we've been doing on this podcast, on our show, and some of the episodes. I think we should do that. And I think what I'd like to start with is we spent a lot of time when we were thinking about putting this podcast together, what it should be about, and our approach. And I think it's worth sharing some of that with our listeners. For me, what was important was that any content we put out, we do our level best or our utmost, I think, to ensure that there is, thoughts are fact checked, that we are speaking and sharing ideas that are verified, and there's some rigor behind it, and there is some evidence behind it, and it's not just my thoughts and my opinions only, or TK's thoughts and opinions only, because I think that wouldn't have made our episodes valuable to our listeners, really. I think that was really important. So that's one thing I wanted to share with our listeners about what made us produce our podcast in the way we have, especially for season 1. And the second thing I wanted to add is this idea of, and we mention it every time at the start of every episode around exploring the world around us, right? And that's really important because I think the only way we can learn and we can develop and explore this concept of agile leadership, like we have done with you as our listeners, is to explore how leadership is being played out in the real world. And some of the stories that we've shared with you have been really important for us in order to convey that message. And a lot of them have been maybe tragedies, or not a lot. Many of them have been tragedies. And that's where you find learning, and that's where you do find insight. But others have been inspirations as well. So there has been a mix. But I think finding those stories, it hasn't been easy always. And it's not been the case that every week we've been able to find a really amazing story to bring you, and share some deep insight. And when we haven't been able to do that, we've still looked around and looked for something that was inspiring enough that we thought was valuable, we can share with our listeners.
And I think, the interesting thing for me, Arif, and this also prompted me, as, I'm sure many of our listeners know, that I run another show daily, which is to make sure we observe the world around us, because there's inspiration everywhere. And we just take it for granted sometimes how much and how many acts of wonderful leadership there are in the world. And they just go unnoticed. And I think, just paying attention to it, highlighting it and talking about it on our podcast was important to us, and still is, and still will be in season 2. But another thing is, as you mentioned, Arif, the evidence-based, fact-checked information, and not only our opinions. I think it's also important to reflect about the fact how easy it is to fall into an echo chamber, which I think we've thankfully managed to stay away from.
Yeah, I mean, it's important. I think that was really crucial for us. And if we're putting together something serious, then we need to be serious about it together. It's not like we want to just rock up and share some, here, this is what I've been thinking about today or whatever, without really putting much thought into it. So that was important. I thought, let's just touch on some of that in a bit more detail, Tika. Mm-hmm. And maybe, I don't know if you want to, I'll put you on the spot a little bit here in terms of favorite episodes that we've recorded this season. I don't know if you wanted to kick us off, and do you have any particular episode that you enjoyed recording and why, and share some of that with our listeners maybe?
So for me, the process that I've enjoyed the most is the process where actually recording an episode and preparing for it has challenged my beliefs. And when the conversation has, maybe has taken us places that I wasn't expecting to go. And I think this is quite important on our podcast, that we don't always agree, although we respectfully disagree. And I think you can definitely hear that happening. 2 are the ones that I would highlight. They're actually quite recent, I think, Arif. And it's not that I don't remember the previous one, the one about Boeing and such. I think, some great stuff there. But the ones that have really challenged me is the one about the unions. In Amazon, I think, I can't remember the number, but a few episodes ago. And it is because I had to really explore how we work with knowledge workers a lot, not a lot with people that, work not in a way with their knowledge, so also called blue collar workers. I don't necessarily like saying that because whatever, but essentially this has really led me to explore this and understand my own approach and my own edges. So this was a difficult one. That's one thing. And the one about treating your company as a family, and the other wonderful patterns we've discussed has also challenged my thinking about myself being in organizations, and also as a leader of an organization. What is it that we are creating here in Humble Associates? So these were my top episodes from a point of view, not maybe something that a listener will get in terms of value, but what I got as a co-host.
Oh, so, okay, fair enough. No, both interesting episodes indeed. The union busting one was episode 27, the one that you're referring to about Amazon. For me, I think the earlier episodes where we, I think, delved into some of it, which was a bit provocative. We looked at this, some of the topics around that were ESG related. There was one around boycotts, and we looked at what what kind of courageous leadership, so to speak, is needed from organizations faced with changes to civic attitudes towards, social topics, and how that's playing out in the workplace. And the idea of boycotting really was quite apparent in the news at that time. It still is. I mean, the other day I was still looking at some information around McDonald's still facing financial difficulties as a result of boycotts, which is interesting, and I think Starbucks still as well. But I think the one that stands out for me the most, and I mentioned inspiration, has to be the episode we did on Anita Roddick, the former CEO of The Body Shop. And I really, really found her story incredibly inspirational, really, really inspirational. It's a shame the world no longer can benefit from her. She's no longer with us anymore. But for any listeners who haven't heard that episode, I would strongly, strongly urge you to do so, because you will learn a lot about this amazing woman and how she led a pioneering business at the time. I mean, putting together a business that was all around being environmentally friendly and climate awareness and against animal testing, etc. in the beauty industry. She was a trailblazer, and there was no one else doing that at the time. So she really was pushing social boundaries in terms of what her business was selling, and her humanized approach, I think, to leadership really stood out for me as well. So that was one that stood out, definitely, along with the stuff we did on some of those ESG related topics, but we were a bit provocative. And I think that why I mentioned the provocative stuff, as you said, TK, I think it's important. I think it's important to use this platform to challenge each other and challenge ideas as well. It doesn't make sense for us to sit here and just hold hands, kumbaya, and say we all agree on everything all the time, which is not true. We don't. But having this as a platform to share why and articulate that in a mature adult way, I think really helps move conversations forward. It helps grow understanding, helps increase people's knowledge as well. So, yeah.
It reminds me of a different show we had at one point, live on LinkedIn. And, we were on vacation and I took someone else as a co-host. And they were just agreeing with me, and it was quite difficult to drive a conversation where the other person says, "Yeah, TK, of course, this and that." And I was like, "Okay, fine." So this is also, I think, important that we're not afraid to share our thoughts, and I think discourse brings new knowledge.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point. It's you've got to stand. There's got to be principles here in terms of your thoughts and beliefs that I'm sure everyone has. There are values that we all hold, and they may clash at certain points. And as long as we're respectfully, discussing them and sharing them, I think it's fine. I mean, largely we are aligned on lots of things, aren't we, TK? It's just, I think there's these. What's good is that we're picking topics and finding stories that help provoke us into thinking about things in slightly different ways than we thought about. That's the important thing.
Indeed.
Anyway, one last thing I just wanted to, before we go for a break, on the topic of agile leadership, and I know we've had a running theme on this in terms of, some of the thoughts that we have and areas that we value when it comes to agile leadership. Excuse me. Do you think any of that has changed for us as we've recorded these episodes? Have we developed our own thoughts a bit more, maybe, or refined anything? Or are there aspects of it where we want to maybe call out a bit more than we have? I don't know. What are your thoughts now that we're reflecting on a whole season of episodes on this?
So that's an interesting one, because I thought about it today as I was, recording and streaming my Coach on the Rocks, and I coined a term which is normalize rather than weaponize. Let me explain. So I think sometimes what happens is a given term is being used so much, and I've talked about DE&I in the morning, but the thing is that when it comes to Agile leadership, we haven't been like mentioning it every second of every episode.
No, that's
because
true.
we've essentially normalized it. We've made it so that, this is just a part of how you need to lead. And sometimes we do say the most important part, which is the Agile leader reflects. But I would now say that a leader needs to reflect. There's no point, or there is a point of talking about Agile leadership as a high performance part of leadership. But for me, throughout the months that we were in this podcast, working with our clients too, and being a part of the L&D community, we've normalized it to the way you need to lead right now.
That's fair. No, I like that you've normalized it. I think that's great. I'm just wondering, beyond how have we done? Let's maybe explore how we've normalized. What have we done throughout this almost it's not a year, but over half a year of producing 8 of these episodes? How do you think we've done that? What do you think we've done specifically to enable that to be normalized?
Well, I think, the important... No, that makes total sense. I think it's all about pointing out the aspects of the acts of leadership we've talked about and how they relate to high performance. And, just in the corner saying like, okay, inspect and adapt, or make sure you deliver tangible outcomes in a test and learn fashion, or reflect. We've always snuck it in. But we haven't been starting with it. We've just said, look, right, it's here.
Yeah. And I think what we're trying to do, I think you're right, what we've tried to do is in all the episodes that we've had, is finding elements where there is a clear alignment in terms of what we're, advocating for, and showcasing why that is important and how that's added value in those other instances, right? In those other stories that we tell. So I think that's been important too. Okay, why don't we go for a quick break, and when we come back, maybe we'll start talking about what season 2 has in store for us.
Yes.
See you soon. Finding and hiring great leaders is crucial for your organization's success. But how do you identify and attract the right talent? Well, join us for our next live LinkedIn webinar on Tuesday, September the 10th, to hear from Gary Wills, founder of Talent Today, as we hear his thoughts and experiences in how to hire the right leaders for your organization. Full details are on our LinkedIn page and on our website. So check it out and sign up now. See you there. Welcome back, everyone. And yes, as I mentioned before the break, let's move the conversation on in terms of what we have in store for you next season. Now, I think it's fair to say that some of you may have gotten bored with listening to TK and I every week in, week out, or maybe you haven't, but I wouldn't blame you, because it has just been our two voices that you're listening to over this past season. And as part of our own, as practitioners of this way of working and thinking, obviously we like to test and learn and continuously improve. And what we have got in store for you is that we will be bringing new insights for you in season 2, because we have a whole, I suppose, plethora of guests. Guests that we have put together, who you'll be hearing from when season 2 starts. And I'll talk about when that is later on. But it's important to reveal that from the outset, that season 2 is going to be very different. We're going to be having guests with us, joining us, sharing insights, sharing stories, telling us new cool things, and hopefully debating with us more about this whole idea of agile leadership and their stories as well. And so, that's the big reveal, I suppose. That's the big news. TK, what do you want to add to that, maybe, as to kick us off on this conversation?
It's definitely been an interesting process, getting these guests in, and we're still talking to guests, but we'll be releasing it for your pleasure. Arif will talk about it quite soon. But I think the important thing, Arif, is we needed these couple of episodes in this particular season to learn the tricks of the trade and to understand how to run a podcast. Now we can explore having more guests. And yeah, if you're interested yourself, you know where to find us. But I'm sure we'll talk about guests coming.
No, we will. So yeah, what have we decided to do? I think what we were thinking of is, in order to elevate what we've been producing and be more dynamic in, I suppose, the kind of stories we wanted to tell. We were thinking, well, if we can bring other voices in, that would help, share different messages, different stories, different experiences. And so we've gone for, I suppose, a mix of people. We've got people who are leaders themselves, who are fairly senior in some cases, and lead teams of teams. Others we've other guests who we plan to bring in are people who work with developing leaders or develop leaders themselves in different areas, whether they are HR professionals or in L&D or they're coaches, for example. I think they all bring something different in terms of their approach to developing leaders. But the connecting thread with all these guests that we've planned to bring in is that they all have thoughts on various aspects of agile leadership as well. And that's important to us in our show. So we're really excited about that. Maybe we can share some details on that. So we've got, who have we got? We've got people like Rebecca Smart, who is or was the former CEO of Dorling Kinsley, the well-known book publisher. A fascinating conversation we've recorded with her that we can't wait to share with you. And she now works as a leadership coach, for instance. So I think that's going to be quite exciting to hear how she views developing leaders. We also have a conversation planned that you'll be listening to. You'll get to hear, with Kim Fowler, who is an ex Chief Marketing Officer at Scale Ups and other well-known businesses like Checkatrade and GiftGaff. And he's been talking to us about servant leadership, for example, and what that means to him and why that's important, and the idea of how to develop leaders as well and grow leaders within an organizational setting. So, yeah, so conversations like that, which we're really, really excited about sharing with you.
Yes,
TK, do you have any picks?
I think, what I really, appreciated when it comes to, I guess, is, for instance, Magdalene. She is a wonderful head of a charity helping children with from various backgrounds, and helping them with music too and leadership. And I think, Benjamin Ritter, a leadership coach, one of our colleagues. I think what was exciting for me, for instance, from these people is how different they are. Yes. And you can clearly hear that while they're speaking. It's not only obviously accents, but tone of voice, the way they express their passion. When it's only two of us, we're quite aligned and you know what to expect. But you'll be quite surprised hearing other voices and the way they speak. The whole episode is different.
Well, that's the whole point, isn't it? As I said earlier on, we want to bring a bit more dynamicism, if that's a word, into our podcast. And really excited.
Sometimes more calm, yes.
Exactly. And really excited to be able to share that with you. So details of all of that. So how is this going to work? So the plan is, this is our last episode to wrap up season 1, as I said. And we are planning to kick off season 2 in early September, first week of September. So go away and have a nice summer holiday break from TK and Arif, and come back refreshed for season 2 in early September. We don't know which episode will feature who at this point yet, but all will be revealed, and we're quite excited about it nonetheless. But yes, first week of September we'll be kicking off season 2. And as I said, we're really excited to be able to share different voices guest appearances from a whole range of industries, backgrounds, but all with some common, I suppose, feelings and common ideas around what leadership looks like, how leadership needs to evolve, and what agile leadership can bring to the table as well. And that's what's important for us. So, yeah, really excited.
Absolutely. And, if you want to stay in touch, and if you want to, because we'll be talking about that in the coming weeks, not necessarily using our voices, but giving you snippets, maybe follow us on LinkedIn, Humble Associates, or join our mailing list on our humble.associates website. We will be letting you know who's coming and when, but obviously if you subscribed here, I'm sure it will land on your favorite podcast player too.
Exactly. And so really excited. Can't wait to get this out into the world in a month's time. But in the meantime, really, really, really want to say a huge thank you to all our listeners, because without you, we've not been able to continue doing what we've been doing. And I genuinely mean that, TK. I think our listenership is what has built this. Sorry, I still have remnants of COVID, so excuse me. But yes, you as our listeners have built this show, and we can't wait to keep going and making it even better for you. So please stay tuned, stay with us, and we look forward to having you in September.
We do.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great summer break, and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.
See you soon.